Welcome to the Train Like a King podcast, dedicated to all things paddling, designed to help paddlers of all levels get motivated to get out on the water. Tune in, grab your paddle, and let's train like a king. Hey guys, welcome back to another Train Like a King podcast episode. On this episode, I'm going to talk about the MolokaBra, Brazil. The MolokaBra is a 3-day downwind race, 30 kilometers to be exact. And it happens from the city or the town of Fortaleza and finishes in a beautiful place called Cumbuco. Now, this wasn't my first time to Brazil. I went to Rio in 2014 for the World Sprint Champs, and that was beautiful. But Fortaleza is another level of beauty. Well, it's just as beautiful, but the added benefit of really good downwind conditions and a really good coastline makes it that much better for paddlers. Not just for paddlers, but OC1 paddlers, V1 paddlers, surf ski paddlers, prone, stand up, and especially kite surfing or windsurfing. Now, kite surfing is that's like the main sport there because of the wind, the predominant wind that you get there. And it was pretty amazing, especially when you get towards Cumbuco, to see how much people kite surf. So it was a pretty awesome experience to get to the MolokaBra this year. And I thank a lot of people, Marcelo Bosi, Rudah, Alexandre, to all the organisers of the event, to Bruno for putting us up at his place, to all of the paddlers that I met along the way, both from OC1, Outrigger, V1, and Surfski. It was a pleasure. It was a beautiful trip. It was a beautiful race, but even better was just experiencing the race and meeting a lot of people and enjoying the culture. I think the culture and the food was the thing that just topped it off for me. So I would definitely recommend this race to anybody that's looking to just gain a whole new perspective and really embrace the culture and the paddling life of Brazil. So basically the format for me for the races there were 3 races, but they were separated by a rest day. So the way that what I did when I was there was I would race one day, and then the next day I would do a day of coaching, then I'd race again, then I'd do a day of coaching, then I'd race again. So it worked out really well for me. I really enjoyed that schedule. And thank you to anyone who came along to the coaching clinics and coaching sessions, because you made that trip very worthwhile, and I enjoyed sharing knowledge and experience with all of you, especially to see Brazil at the stage that it's at now. It's really awesome, because there's so much potential there, and they're already really good, but in a few years' time I think they have the potential of being really good, if not dominant. And knowing that a future world champs is going to be there very soon, that's another motivating factor for them, but it's also a motivating factor for us to go over there and experience Brazil. So yeah, amazing experience and trip. So where do I actually start? let's maybe start with the race itself. So the before leading up to the race, I was actually always planning on doing OC1. Well, I thought about doing OC1 and maybe a day of surf ski and that, but I actually was going to race OC1, and coming into the first race, day one, the morning of, there wasn't a lot of wind. There was enough wind for me to be happy, but I think a lot of the locals who know that spot weren't too happy with the light wind conditions. So they actually a lot of the paddlers wanted to postpone the race now and make it on another day, because they kind of had the lenience because they had that rest day in between each race days. They could have done that. But man, I just want to get out on the water and race. So I'm very glad that they didn't change the day. However, they did change the rule regarding overall time. So basically, you got to pick your best 2 times out of the 3. Or better yet, you didn't even have to race that day. You could save your energy for the last 2 days and get good times, knowing that the wind was progressively going to get stronger as the week went on. For me, I just wanted to race. So I understood that most of the top OC1 paddlers had pulled out and weren't going to race that day because of the light winds, and they were going to save the energy for the next race. So immediately I thought, hey, I'm going to race surf ski. Now, bearing in mind, this day, the first day, was considered the Pan America Surf Ski Championships or something like that. And they weren't willing to change the date or the race day. So the surf skis had to race. And so I really enjoyed that idea that the top surf ski paddlers of the nation were going to battle it out. So I had about an hour to find a surf ski, find a paddle, and jump in this race. And I did. Managed to get a Nilo. Never been on a Nilo before. It was quite short, to be honest. Used a new paddle for the first time. Took a little while to get used to it. Probably didn't really truly get used to it down on the downwind run, but hey, it was a canoe, and I was happy to be in the race. Now, the conditions weren't too bad, and I would say that I had a pretty good line, and I ended up finishing second behind a guy, a Spanish paddler, one of the top kayak marathon paddlers and surf ski paddlers in Spain. He actually got 5th in the world championships last year, so I knew it was going to be another good gauge for me, similar to how I raced Corey Hill and Tahiti. Be a perfect time to gauge my performance against a top 5 finisher at a world champs. And apparently he won recently one of the biggest river races that you can do, one of the most competitive. If you've ever seen a river race of paddlers trying to get in the water and take off, and it's just like really crazy, hundreds of boats all piled up on each other, just crashing into each other. That's the race that he won recently this year or something like that. So really, it was a really good opportunity for me to test my skills against him. And race 1, I was second behind him. And I think I was only about 35 to 40 seconds behind him. I personally think I chose a better outside line than him, and he took a really inside route. I didn't see him at all until the 100 meters off the finish line. And if I had seen him a little earlier, I wish I kind of pushed a bit more. So I was fairly happy with that. But now, because I got second, being the competitive person that I that I was, I didn't want, I wanted another chance at beating him. So I decided that I wasn't actually going to go back onto the OC1 and I was going to remain on a surf ski. Bearing in mind that we actually had a couple of, we had what you would call a training run where we mimicked the race. And I did that one on an OC1 and I won that. So part of me already felt like I had raced on OC1 anyway prior to the official races starting. So I wasn't that concerned about not racing on the OC1. So race two, I think Walter, must have known that I'm gunning for him now. And maybe he took note of my wider line than his. And it was funny because race two, we did the opposite. He chose the wider line early on, and I chose the inside line. Now, although the wind had picked up too, and although that I thought I was actually going pretty quick, I pretty much cut a pretty straight line. Although I thought I was like consistently traveling at some pretty good speeds, Walter on the outside managed to have a smoking run, and I think he got me by a minute or two in the second race. Now, straight line can be fine, but I find that sometimes you don't get that swell that really opens up because the waves are running directly and you're kind of maybe in shallower water. You're kind of trapped sometimes. You don't have that ability to like really run the wave and jump and take the long rides, which I think you might be able to do on the outside. So second again, race two. And again, I was hungry to fight again. So I had one more opportunity, one more day to test my skills against one of the fastest paddlers in the world, kayak paddlers for marathon distance. And by now I managed to get on a different ski. I guess it's worth noting that I got on a ski that wasn't as short as the first day, a bit longer, a little bit more volume, but it did take in a little bit of water. So I was trying to tape up bits where I thought the holes were, but couldn't quite, avoid it completely. There was always a little bit of water left in the hull towards the end. But yeah, so the last day, the windiest day, although it wasn't the quickest day, it was the windiest, but sometimes maybe because the wind was just a little bit more diagonal from the right, it wasn't as fast as day two. Day two was more of a straight wind. So my strategy for day three was to go out hard and fast, because the first 2 days I kind of gauged and stayed back a little bit and then tried to attack. Day three, I was like, I'm just going to race my own race and have a really strong start and let him catch me, and that's what I did. Managed to lead for, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, starting hard. And then eventually I knew Walter was going to catch me. Just super strong, super fit, physically fit, and he's got good technique. I don't really have the best technique yet. So, but what it did is it set both of us up really well for the race, and I felt like I was in a good position now. He did get in front of me, and he maintained the lead for majority of the race, but it also gave me the ability to track him. So basically my intention now, as soon as he got in front of me, was I'm not going to let him I'm not going to get off his line. I'm going to stay on him all the way. And that way that the course or the route or the line is not going to have anything to do with it. It's going to come down to physical fitness or maybe a simple mistake. And, there were moments where he would pull away and have a really good run. And there were moments where I would come up to him and I'd pass him for a bit and then he'd take the lead again. And it was really exciting actually, because we're out there and the swells were pretty big. Like, it's everything that you would ask for in a race. And because we really did take a wide line, I think we were really milking the big stuff. So, but as I said, he still was leading for majority of that race, like just uncomfortably close, and I remember looking at my watch, my GPS, and it was reading about 27, 28 kilometers. And so I knew we were coming close to the finish line now. Not long. He's still in sight, maybe 40 meters, 40, 50 meters at most in front of me. And in my mind, I'm like, man, it only takes 2 or 3 good waves to break that, close that gap and take the lead. So it's a focusing game at this point. The more you focus, the more you're gonna succeed. The more you try and just like outright push and go crazy, you're not really gonna get good speed from that. So I just stayed focused and I knew where I had to go. I knew the finish line. And so we were actually relatively still high. So basically what I mean by high is that we haven't dropped in yet and dropped into the direction of the swell towards the finish line. So we're basically waiting and to time it well, because if you go in too early, then you get trapped on the coastline and it's not good. So at this point, Walter was in front of me, but I spotted the 2 jangada, which are 2 traditional boats of Fortaleza, Brazil. And they were marked at the finish line. You had to finish between the 2. And I could see them. And I thought, now's the perfect time to drop with the swell and finish straight between those 2. So that's what I did. I dropped left, started taking the big runners and the swell straight on, and really started getting some speed. And within, a minute or 2, I couldn't even see Walter anymore. And, I thought, I didn't know what to think, because the 2 races before that, it was most of the race I didn't see Walter at all. So I was like, don't take anything for granted at this point. Don't think you're in the lead or whatever. Just go 100%. Just no matter what, just go 100%, because just race your own race. That's the advice I was giving myself. Just race your own race. And the jangada started to come into sight, and I was getting closer and closer, and then a lead boat pulled up to me and started filming me, and then so did a guy on a wind or kite surfer came up and started filming me. So I'm like, damn, am I in the lead or what? I don't know. And then I started to think maybe I am, and passed through the 2 jangada through the finish line, and I immediately looked to the left at some of the guys on the boat, and I asked, what place am I? First, second? And they told me first, and I was so happy. I was so happy that I managed to get a win. And then I looked out to my right and I could see Walter coming in from a little bit of a high line. And he was about 35 seconds behind me. So not enough for me to take the overall win for the overall times. However, just getting a win was awesome. But it showed that I timed the finish better than Walter. I think he may have misinterpreted the finish line and dropped too late, stayed high, whereas I dropped at the perfect time. Now, obviously, Walter's physically and technically better paddler than me, but that's not always what determines a race result. You have there's lines, there's race strategies, there's everything counts towards the race. So never count yourself out. And the moral of the story is always keep trying, keep pushing. You never know what's going to happen. So the week itself taught me a lot. I learned a lot about surf ski paddling, about myself, and had fun. So that was the race. I ended up winning the last leg. Last try wins. But second overall, and very happy with that. So it was a great experience. Now I want to wrap up just talking about the outside of the race itself. So the thing I loved most about MolokaBra was the people. The people, the paddlers, the athletes. They were all on a really positive vibe, and maybe it's because things are quite new there. There's a lot of excitement and early passion that you see when new people are, there's a combination of new paddlers getting into such an exciting sport. And yeah, I just really felt that vibe. Everyone was really positive, especially in the clinics. The next thing I want to talk about is just the food. The food was unreal. So there's a lot of like traditional foods and flavors that exist in Brazil. And thanks to Marcelo and Rudah, every time we would go and eat at a restaurant, they would always recommend something that was traditional and had a bit of meaning behind it. There were meals that take you back into the past, and then there's meals that take you to the Amazon and all sorts of things. So my favorite, I can't even name all the foods, but acai bowls, caju juice, caju fruit. It was awesome to experience those. All of the little traditional flavors, the beans, the rice, the meats. And to finish it off, the last day, Marcelo and Rudah took me to the Brazilian barbecue, which was like all you can eat buffet style, but every meat that you can think of just comes to your table continuously until you just can't eat anymore. That was one way to really top it off. So now that I'm in New Zealand, I'm going to try and look for some traditional, I wouldn't say traditional, but mimicking traditional food of Brazil, acai and other things, and maybe show a few of our people back here some of the foods from Brazil, because that was a major part, and I'd go back there just for that. But yeah, coming back to the event itself, the MolokaBra Fortaleza, it's one of the best races I've ever done. One of the funnest weeks I've ever witnessed and been a part of, and one of the best experiences I've had internationally as a overall trip. So again, thank you. I've got my Jingada trophy here, which was one of the coolest trophies I've ever received. We got to go out on one of the Jingadas thanks to Alexandre. And we had a couple of races on them, and it was pretty amazing to see these things. So basically what a Jingada is it's a traditional fishing vessel and it's not very large. Some of these are pretty tiny, but they sail out and they go and collect shrimp and lobsters and stuff like that. And looks super like you wouldn't think it was as agile as they are, if that's even a thing for crafts boats, but they're actually really agile, and one of them fit a lot of us on it. And yeah, it's really cool to see something. There's a lot of traditional history behind that. So it was really cool to see that race really embracing its culture, and I think they did it really, really well. They ran that race really, really well. And so I recommend it to everyone. Recommend it to everyone. Next year, I really want to go back there, but I also want to go to other places in Brazil. I want to go to Bahia. I want to go to Niterói, Sao Paulo, um, Amazonia, all these places. And I imagine every place is different too. Every place has its own unique culture, and things like that. So it'd be awesome. It'd be awesome to go there, especially next year, a year before the world champs are there in Niterói. Would be awesome to get there and get a feel for what it's like over there. So again, thank you to all the clubs too, the likes of Vibe Va'a, Kayakeria. I'm going to miss a few names, but every club that hosted me, every peddler that came along to a coaching clinic, everyone that just, bought merchandise from our merchandise tent, to our special helper, Lina, thank you. You were amazing helping us run our shop off, with very short notice. So Lina helped us sell our Train Like a King gear so that me, Marcelo, and Rudah could all focus on racing. So thank you, Lina, and we'll have you again next year. And yeah, thank you to everyone that came up and just whatever, got a signature, watched my YouTube clips or anything like that, listen to this podcast. It's a pleasure to meet you all, and yeah, we'll see you guys next year. Thanks for listening to another episode. Ciao. Bon noite. Or bon dia, whatever it is. So, obrigado. Thank you for listening to another episode on the Train Like a King podcast. Check out trainlikeaking.com for training plans, merchandise, and coaching opportunities. If you haven't already, give us a follow so you don't miss another episode. Catch you on the next one.